Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Hercules and the Space Gods, I bring you the one, the only, the magnificent Nick
Well,
Curto, Culture Network New York show. Greetings, Nick. How are you?
oh, thank you for that wonderful introduction. It was just like I wrote it. And really, I really do appreciate that. Great to see you. We're all looking for spring. Oh my goodness. I know that you're in Tenafly, New Jersey. I'm here in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, and we have snow still. A lot of it we're still recovering from, and boy, it was quite the winter, it turns out.
I'm just glad it wasn't as bad as they were anticipating and may it continue to be so. I'll be here, Nick, if you need me, and I'm looking forward, as always, to tonight's wonderful show.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hercules. And hello, I'm Nick Curto, and I'm the host of Disclosure Network New York. And we are now an organization running, I can't believe, 28 years here in Manhattan. We do one or two meetings a month. One of them is a face-to-face, person-to-person, and the other one is a Zoom meeting. And that's quite a schedule. 28 years, we have had amazing people lecture. We have an amazing membership. They're from Hawaii, there are some from Europe, and of course, the United States, and a smattering here, of course, in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And very proud of that. And these people are well informed, and we share knowledge as we find it. And it's one of the high points of my life. Really amazing. Uh, and so, if you want any information on that, I'm going to give you my email address, and you could ask me for that, and I'll send that to you if you want to become a member. You don't have to be obviously in Manhattan to become a member of our group, Disclosure Network New York. My email address is NickNY1, and that's the numeral one, at gmail.com. Again, NickNyNY1 at gmail.com. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce my guest for this evening. I think a great deal of his work, and he is certainly one of the people that I love to interview. Welcome, 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 Richard Smith.
Thank you for having me on the show again. I think this is the fourth time I've been on here, and it's always been an honor. Yes, but I'm glad to see you all again. It's good to be back.
Great to have you, Richard, and I'm looking forward to asking questions on your take on a number of different issues that have come up, and see, what you think of them, and as we go. Uh, Now, just to start things off from the beginning, I was born in Springfield, Massachusetts, and as a kid, I looked up at the sky, and that was it for me. I wanted to know what was out there. It absolutely was one of the prime things of, even as a child, what in the world is that? And as we learn from, as a child growing up, that we're on a planet among billions of other planets in a universe, and it's just one thing leads to another, and you realize what in the world? This is incredible. You can't take anything for granted. And I want to ask you, Richard, as a child, were you also interested in that sort of thing?
Yes, actually, I had an interesting experience when I was very young too. Um, I yeah, I could go in a lot of directions on that, but I'll just focus on the key one that served to set off a rhythm in my life, a cycle. And I talk about this in the books too. Um, it was the age of 11, like towards the end of 1981. And my mother, my brother, and I getting into mom's car, we're leaving my grandmother's house, which is symbolic in itself for reasons I won't get into now. But we're in the driveway at my grandparents' house, and I looked up in the sky, and I didn't even ask mom or my brother Rob if they saw anything, but I happened to notice right away there's a spot in the sky that's extra bright that doesn't look like it's really supposed to be there.
Hmm.
And I noticed, I mean, there was just something about it that stood out as, you know, out of the norm. Um, and we get in the car, back out of the driveway, we start driving away. And then my mom says, you notice that light in the sky? I said, oh, you saw it too. I said, yeah, I'm watching it. And then my brother's watching it too out the window. Well, what we noticed was that it actually was watching us. It homed in on us and began to follow us in the sky with our movements down the street with the car. And at that time, this was Farmingdale, New York, where I grew up. Um, and where we lived was on the opposite side of town. We're at one end of Farmingdale. My grandparents were at the other. Okay. So it was going to take a little bit of a ride to get back home across town. Um, and so this is what we had to really base it on or compare it to. It wasn't like we were just 2 blocks away and maybe we misinterpreted it, because as we're driving towards home, at the halfway point between my grandparents' house and our home, there was a main intersection. Red light, all, just a big intersection there that you had to stop at. We hit the red light, we stopped. This thing in the sky stopped with us.
Oh boy.
All right. And while we were at the stoplight, however many minutes it stayed that way, we then saw as it stopped, it started making its own irregular movements, like the shape of a square, in the sky, going backwards slowly, going forward slowly, going in the shape of a square slowly. And then it came to a stop. Right at that point, the light turns green. We drive through the intersection. It starts going with us again. So,
This is unbelievably wonderful. Whoa.
and yeah, and we get to the other side of town. We're just about getting into our neighborhood. And then the object it followed us all the way to our house. And then it decided to go further and disappear behind the tree line, further down the neighborhood. And then we didn't see it anymore. But this thing was definitely matching our movements and following the three of us. Now, if you consider the alien contact phenomena to be generational, following family bloodlines, it makes perfect sense why this started at my grandmother's house. Then my mother and I saw it. Then my brother saw it. We watched, because it was there on purpose at my grandmother's house, which I think is where a lot of this all started with her, even though I could never prove that because I never got to talk to her about it. So, but yeah, that's what started it off for me. That resulted in writing a book report about the experience and UFOs in general. And I actually, I think it was the third book in the trilogy. I included that original book report from fourth grade in the book
Oh,
with all of its horrible grammatical errors and misspellings and all that. I put it in just as is. I gave an explanation afterwards that no, this is not how I spell. This is not my grammar, but this was me in fourth grade. Okay, so and there I am writing a book report, and that started it off. So
thank you for sharing that story. I will remember that a long, long time. That what a launch. I mean, could there be a better launch than what happened? No, I don't think so. I mean, that is absolutely amazing. Wow. Um, I've had an experience briefly tell you that I was with my mom and dad and my younger sister in a car in New England on a Sunday, and we go for rides. That was one of the things the family do. My mother would make sandwiches and put them in a cooler with some canned soda and stuff, and we
right,
would go and perhaps find a picnic place or go to another state. And I think we were in New Hampshire that particular day. It's on a Sunday. And
Mhm.
it was a normal day, sunny in the summer. And my mom and dad were in the front seat. My dad was driving, me and my sister were in the back. And going not on a highway, it was just a regular little road. No big deal. Not a lot of traffic at all. And what could possibly go wrong? Well, let me tell you. All of a sudden, from the front of the car through the car was a wave of energy,
Oh, wow. Okay.
a huge wave of energy. And I can actually say to you that every pore of my body felt a pin.
Oh, okay.
It
Okay.
was a hurtful, knocked me back in my seat. And in 1 second, I was like, what, did we hit some, what? And then I look up and another wham.
Oh,
I
wow.
can't I can't tell
Okay.
you how strong that what the wave was. The next thing I remember, the next thing I remember, it was late at night. We were somehow parked in a forest. It was very dark, but it was a full moon. And I was sitting on the edge of my dad's car,
Okay.
on the front of the car, outside. And about a foot from my face was a gray
Oh, okay.
looking right at me, 1 foot
Wow.
away.
Okay.
And I couldn't move. I was totally paralyzed. I went from a happy afternoon in the sun with my dad in my dad's car to that particular moment. I'll never forget. I was scared. There was no communication that I remember now. I have to say that.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it was a straight looking right at me. The next thing, and I couldn't see, I couldn't move my face, my head, anything. So I couldn't see, but I couldn't hear anyone else around. No one else.
Right.
Dark forest. The next thing I remember, my mom and dad, my sister and I are back in the car. And my dad is very creepingly slow moving to our home in Massachusetts.
Okay.
We weren't talking. Nobody was saying anything. And that's very unlikely because we're
Yeah.
always like, look at this. Oh, look over there. Nothing.
Right.
Total silence. Uh, we got back there, and the bottom line is we weren't talking to each other. I remember my mother was closing drapes, almost like making sure that there was nothing outside that could see in, that sort of thing.
Oh, right.
And the bottom line, Richard, is that we never talked about it,
Huh.
ever. And the other thing is, I had no memory of that until 30 years later.
Okay.
And all of a sudden, like something clicked. I don't know what initiated that, a sound, a smell. I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden, what I just told you streamed into me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I wasn't sleeping. I was wide awake. I thought, what in the world? And I wanted at that point, my parents, oh, well, for a while, they were still with us alive. Now they're deceased. My sister is with us still. And even my sister, I could never say anything about this to her. Every time I tried,
Yeah.
I felt
Yeah.
as though, don't you dare. Like there was something that had implanted me, said to me, never talk about it to anyone of the family that was there.
Yeah.
Does that make, have you ever heard anything like that in your travels?
As far as getting hit by a wave of energy
No.
resulting in I mean, the experience is amazing, and I'm glad you brought it up. Yeah, with other people in UFO circles and alien contact circles, I've heard them talk about that too, where it felt like they were hit by this wave of energy, and in some cases, they didn't have that awakening until years later, like you did. And it just came to the surface at that point, whether it was your mind letting it loose at that point, or maybe it was that extraterrestrial being you came in contact with may have downloaded it to you and set it on a particular biological clock to unleash at a certain point or come to the surface at a certain point. Siblings, yeah, that's not uncommon for people in the same family to have an emotional mental shutdown to the point where one sibling can handle it, the other can't, and it's very hard to bring it up because if you do try to bring it up with the other person in the family, it becomes not so much that they're going to ridicule you, but they're going to have a very strange, painful knee-jerk reaction of sheer panic, like, no, don't bring that back. I don't want that to come to the surface. Because there's that inkling in the back of their mind that, well, guaranteed, your sister knows something happened. She has an idea of what it might be, but her conscious mind may not want to accept it or can't process it or can't fit it into her everyday life. So it just gets blocked out. You come along and you're someone in her family. There's that immediate mental and emotional contradiction where this is my brother, I trust him, but what he's telling me is violating me. And that's that psychological snap where they have this revulsion and they even turn on you, even though they don't realize they're doing it.
I think you got it right on the money on that. And I felt deeply that I would be hurting her if I ever brought it up. I just felt very strongly, don't do it. Now, I don't know if it was me or a suggestion, not hypnosis, but something like that that would say, keep it quiet. I don't know, but I just know that I was incredibly uncomfortable and never could bring it up ever.
It may very well have been the experience itself with the type of wave or frequency you experienced that had put them, how would I say it? Just basically embedded a message right into your DNA that said, don't talk to her about this.
Yeah.
She's not part of this, even though she is.
Yeah. No, I think you're right on the money on that.
my
Now
mother,
that was an incredible beginning
yeah.
for you. I mean, holy cow! You just can't turn around and forget something like that. That is incredible. I'm so glad you had
Yeah,
that.
and yeah, I don't get to talk about it too often. I brought it up maybe a couple of times before in the past years, but um, I was fortunate enough to have a brother who experienced it with me, and then we grew up in that environment, interested in that. The could have been anything from Star Trek to Carl Sagan's Cosmos to UFOs in the Bible, but we
Hmm.
grew up in that atmosphere. My mom was open to it. And so we had the good fortune that understandably most people don't have of having parents and two brothers who could talk to each other about it and bring it up and not have any kind of backlash. Now, I don't quite know what all the experiences are that my brother might remember. Um, I left that up to him to talk to me when he wanted to, but I know I've spoken to him about things going on with me, just to let him know. And he's always been there to talk about it. He's never had an issue with it. He knows it's a real thing. He knows there's something there. I just don't know if he knows how to piece it together for himself where he fits into that, or maybe he doesn't know how to verbalize it.
Yeah.
And, understandably so, he's had other more important life events on his plate. Being a father, having four daughters who are two of them are grown up and either are married or have a boyfriend living on their own, so he's had a lot of responsibilities to take care of that maybe be sidelines the whole paranormal and UFO thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
He had a different dynamic going on for him that could have forced him to put that to the side, but he was always there to talk to me, which I was always happy with because I would hear stories from other people like what you just brought up where they felt like they couldn't talk to anybody in the family, even though the family experienced it, but the family, many other members of the family had that emotional shutdown
Yeah.
where it was just too much for them to bring to the surface because then they'd have to start questioning their role in society, their identity, things like that.
It opens up an amazing door. It
Yeah.
absolutely does. And once it's opened, it's quite an adventure trying to sort things out for sure.
Yeah.
I want to ask you too, because as a child growing up,
Mhm.
I wanted answers. I wanted answers, and sometimes there were no answers available. And so I kept looking. I knew that we couldn't possibly be the only planet with life.
Mm.
And I say intelligent life with a question mark at times. But um, I also was I had an aunt who was in the church as a nun in the Catholic
Okay.
Church. I was raised Roman Catholic, and of course, I was in Bible class, and we learned about Jesus and his life and the miracles and talking about the Heavenly Father. And so that was
Right.
one of the areas that I thought I should walk down and
Mhm.
investigate what the connection might be,
Right.
because you can think, wow, if all that is true, then that would open the door to extra, uh, what shall I say, brothers and sisters in other areas looking like us or not looking like us. And I
Mhm.
kind of put that together at the time in the Catholic faith. And I'm wondering if you ever, in your search, went in a spiritual direction too, or not with this kind of subject matter. I'd just be curious.
I I guess the best way to answer that is where my experiences and my research took me to. Um, and that would have been somewhere around, I would say 2005. Um, I had my, before I mentioned two, I jumped too far ahead. 1991, I had my first awakening to a whole lot of stuff going on with my family. That first experience that I've talked about in the past with the crone, this female praying mantis who made herself known to me, who really had always been there since I was very young. Um, and a lot of other things exploded in front of me at that point with that initial conversation about my family, my mother, my grandmother, my brother, and where things were going to go. And that started a very interesting long-term conversation over the decades. Bring that up to 2005, it took an interesting bit of a turn that point to get to your question. Um, in that I at that point I was questioning the entire narrative in the UFO community and the paranormal community, alien contact community. It just seemed to be running in circles. And I'm being careful with what I say because I don't want anyone to feel insulted, right? Uh,
Okay.
everyone's got their own experiences and all that, but the general narratives started becoming um, a little bit more, um, how should I say, misdirected or skewed to the point where I realized, okay, everything in the UFO community is taking it up to a certain point, but then they're hitting a brick wall. and nobody's crossing that bridge to the other side to take it the whole 9 yards. And that's when I started saying, you know, is this all there is? Is there nothing more? There has to be, I know it is happening, but why is it happening? Why is this playing out on this planet? Because when you start asking yourself, well, is what's communicating with us today one and the same with what was always there right from the beginning in terms of ancient astronauts or ancient aliens? These are not two different things. Alien contact today are the same beings who were there 5,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 years ago. This would be the shocking reality that people would have to come to terms with, because there's a whole lot of implications in that in terms of creationism and evolution. It totally turns both of those narratives upside down.
Oh boy, does it ever.
Yeah, and puts them actually, it turns them upside down, but it also puts them in the same box, and to the point where creationism and evolution start speaking the same language. Okay, different syntax, same language. Okay, point for point, you can line them up next to each other, and they're both talking about the same thing, but in more of a state of denial, without actually pointing a finger right at the thing that's in front of them. Like if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and sounds like a duck, but you're calling it something else, well, then you're in denial.
Quack.
So in 2005, I had gotten to that point, and my awareness and conversation with the crone and took a leap forward into answering that question: what is on the other side of this bridge that no one else seems to be wanting to talk about, and what is on the other side? And that, if there was going to be a spiritual element to it, it would have been at that point when I realized that this whole gambit on this planet was coming down to extraterrestrial intervention, which is in many ways on the side of the family of man, which is parallel to the, let's say, the bloodline of the prophets. Okay, and then the other side of it, which is the alien abduction phenomena, which is, and this is the reality that I had to come to terms with, the alien abduction phenomena is on the other side of that equation, which is not the same as extraterrestrial intervention. And the alien abduction side of it is that aspect of it that works against the family of man, against the bloodline of the prophets, against what I've talked about in the books as the Temple of Solomon, and the that whole lineage there. And so that's where you might start getting into the spiritual symbolism of one side versus the other, where one side has an investment in what you might know esoterically as flesh and bone, family of man, our ecological balance with the planet, being caretakers of the planet, okay? Our ability to balance out our technology with our mindfulness with the planet, basically the Native American reality that had always been there for anywhere from 10 to 50,000 years, until this other damaging element came along and destroyed it. And then the other side of that equation, in opposition to flesh and bone, is more so working on the side of what would be known esoterically as wood and stone, which is that greed-driven, power-driven control of not only real estate and tradable commodities that we live on, but us ourselves. We are not seen as sovereign entities who, granted, we haven't woken up yet. 80% of us are still asleep, but we are the caretakers of this planet. we haven't come to that realization yet. That's the part that the other side is taking advantage of, our ignorance, our naivete about who we truly are. We seem to operate under the pretext that everything around us controls how we get through the day, when it's really supposed to be us controlling our own narrative. The other side of the equation doesn't want us to remember that, because they just see us as the chattel living on the real estate of tradable commodities. Okay. And to that end, just to put an exclamation point at the end of that, the New York State Book of Real Estate, for what realtors and real estate agents learn from, if you look at the glossary and the definition of words in the back, there's a clear-cut definition of real estate. And it's defined as specifically anything from that plot of land down to the center of the earth and up into outer space. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not
Wow.
filling in
I
words.
never heard that. Wow.
This is the actual legal wording of
Wow.
the definition of real estate. Now, if this has been going on since time immemorial, then that goes a long way to explaining why a definition like that has trickled down through the generations. Why else would you need a legal definition like that for real estate, including to the center of the earth and up into outer space? Why? What was the motivation for that? Okay.
Yeah.
I can't control what's above me, and I certainly can't reach into outer space and start planting crops out there. So why is that part of it? And if I go down to the center of the earth, I can't get to what's down there without, being vaporized. So something else of a different narrative was implanted into the context of real estate, which is wood and stone, tradable commodities, and us being seen as nothing more than chattel. And that is where I went in 2005. And since then, that has been a turning point of a more spiritual side to understand one side versus the other. The reason I got to that point was because by the time 2005 came along, and I'm thinking, is this all there is? Is there nothing more, with everybody complaining about being a victim and so forth, which I get it. The things they were describing, yeah, that's all valid. But those were not the experiences I was having. And by the time 2005 came along, I realized there's some kind of a drastic difference between my brother and I versus other people who are having these other experiences. And that's not, you get to a certain point from 1991, when I was 21, up to 2005, and all those years in between, you've had plenty of time to realize you're not really on that side of the aisle. You're on the other side. And why? What's at a certain point, you actually have that thought coming into yourself, into your head. Well, what's wrong with me? Because I'm not experiencing it the way they are. My experiences are going in a very different direction. That doesn't invalidate anyone, except to bring up a question: what's the difference? And that's where I was in 2005, and that's what kicked it off into a different path to follow to get those answers.
Gotcha. Wow. Yeah, there's a lot there, a lot more there too, with what you're saying.
Well, I didn't want to go off on tangents, so I'm just reining it in as best as I
No, that's wonderful. We're gonna do another part on this, believe me, because we're not through here at all. Believe me, there's so much, Richard, I really want to run by you. Um, I just wanted to tell you, I was thinking about this earlier tonight before the show, because I was thinking of what kind of questions to ask you, and one of the things that came to mind, just out of nowhere, if I could pick certain people that would be the greeting committee
Mhm.
of a landing. It certainly wouldn't be the first landing, but it would be a landing. Who would I pick? You're on that short list.
Okay,
No,
thank you. Uh,
you've earned it. You absolutely are. I would say Dr. Stephen Greer,
yeah,
I think would be a very good person also on that.
definitely,
Um,
definitely. Yes.
Count me in.
Yes.
I want to be there. I want to be
I
there.
I was hoping you put yourself on your own short list. You should be there too.
And Linda Morton Howell, I think, would be another
Yeah,
good choice. Who else would you be with that group? Who else do you think would be the kind of person that would be good for that kind of committee, a welcoming committee? Who else could, in your vision, would be also a good person to be on that?
I think um, people like Sue Walker and her husband, Reverend White Otter, um, they've always been at the forefront of this official first contact movement. Um, I mean, I think I think someone like Richard Dolan should be there too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Honestly, I mean, Stephen Greer, Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe, with names that you mentioned. Um, I think just because it's the right thing to do, I think for all the blood, sweat, and tears that Stephen Bassett put into this, I think he
Oh,
should be there. Yes,
good choice.
that man has to, maybe even to a fault, has dedicated his whole life, practically all his money,
Yep.
to push this in a forward motion, to get it to be a dialogue in Congress, which at this point in time, you know, all these discussions about UAP disclosure in Congress, sure, it came from the back end in the military pushing the issue, saying we can't compete with these things. We have nothing like what they have. But the only reason that became a critical a point of critical mass is because in the forefront you already had people like Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, and Stephen Bassett pushing it in the public's eye into Congress. So when it's coming from the back end, from the military and astronauts, who you cannot deny, you cannot make fun of them, you cannot you cannot say, well, you know, they're not credible. What are you talking about? They're flying $5 million jets. How are they not credible? Okay, they're flying space shuttle programs and God knows what else. All of a sudden, they're not credible, and they have access to see things that most of us will never see in a lifetime. So you can't argue that they're not credible at that point. Once that comes from the back end in your own backyard, then you start looking at the front end as to what's been said all along
Hmm.
by the people who were pushing those press conferences and narratives, like Dr. Stephen Greer and Stephen Bassett and Richard Dolan and all them. Um, I mean, granted, you and I as well, but I know they're the ones that took it straight to Congress and said, look, this is what it is. You want to laugh at it now? Great, but you're going to regret it later. And now they are regretting it because now, um, talking about, people you want on that committee for that contact, now the legitimate congressional government is locking horns for the first time with the illegitimate government, which the face of it is the intelligence community, the IC.
Hmm.
But that's just the face of it because something behind them is pulling their strings because of all the connections that the intelligence community has had since the end of World War II.
Yeah. No, well said and well thought of. Because of the internet uh, and Zoom meetings and
Mm-hmm.
all that, we have been so fortunate to be living in a time that the information is gigantic every single day. I mean, I get so many emails. I'm on YouTube. It's an education every single day. And with the subject matter that you're interested in and I'm interested in, especially this type of thing, uh, it's undeniable what's breaking all the time, day by day. It's almost
Yeah.
hard to keep up with it, which
Yes.
that's good news. So that is good news. That's progress. That's that's truth that's seeping out. That was certainly covered up uh, by a great many different places. And you wonder, controlling, of course, controls lives, controls the reality of what's really breaking, what's really going on. And I have to say that it angers me that there are control systems that make it very difficult for you and me and researchers worldwide to get to the truth.
Yeah.
And I feel as though we absolutely deserve and need the truth. And for others to be controlling that, it's got to be wrong. It just does. And that always does anger me to this minute that this is going on. And do you have any other takes on that?
Yes. It's and I'm glad you brought it up. I was just, as you were explaining that, I was just thinking the the culture of secrecy starting at the end of World War II with the escalation of, you know, Stalinism, and all of a sudden Russia breaks away as the USSR and becomes their own superpower. Um, that culture of secrecy with crashed UFO wreckage, Roswell, and several others, and that became a psychological makeup. It wasn't because it was based in fear. It was based in fear of like the type of America that existed at the end of World War II. Granted, that doesn't that we have a very different America today. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but the United States that existed at the end of World War II was the kind that felt like we're on top of the world. We beat the Nazis, okay?
Hmm.
And then on the coattails of that comes this all-out dreadful fear of nuclear annihilation, that no matter how good you felt coming out of World War II, thinking you were the good guys, um, everybody was going to lose out, even if it was just one atomic bomb, right? And
No,
here we have a multitude of them aiming at each other, even though Reagan and Gorbachev did a fantastic job of de-escalating and getting rid of a lot of them. There's still others floating around out there that, with the disintegration of Russia, who knows what anybody has. Okay, at this point, where did the rest of them go? Are they accounted for? Um, so that fear-based paranoia was a backlash on the military, and it was right at that point where, like, well, one, we don't want to destroy the psychology of um, hardworking Americans who feel like they're on top of the world. We won, we're the good guys, Nazis destroyed. Well, then you go and roll out this UFO stuff, and that completely annihilates that identity, that mentality of I know who I am. For better or worse, I'm not saying it was good or bad. I think ultimately it was a bad decision at the time, because um, you were working with people who really couldn't see things down the line. They only saw what was right in front of them, and what was right in front of them was a big giant ball of fear of, oh my God, we're going to have a meltdown here, uh, and complete in the complete psychological makeup of Americana. Then the nuclear threat comes along with Russia, and that sealed the deal. It was the culture of secrecy was then based in the psychology of fear. Now that became a ripple effect, repeating over and over as a culture of fear, a culture of secrecy. The two interlocked with each other. And as the old phrase goes, we are the product of 10,000 years of bad behavior, and trying to break those bad habits is difficult. Well, since the end of World War II, in a more condensed sense, you could say the same thing. We are the product of a culture of secrecy and a culture of fear, and trying to break those bad habits and pull it apart, and in a sense, be the psychoanalyst who knows how to separate those out. And, just speaking in the general sense, that's a Herculean task to get these people to let go of their fear of losing power, which is really just based in fear of not having the secrecy. So there is a culture. Someone else, Andrew Pishago, referred to it as the breakaway civilization, the shadow government. There's been several other terms for it along the way. But all in all, these people kept replicating these bad habits because the other side, invested in wood and stone, kept feeding them all sorts of reasons to remain fearful of letting the people know. And in that culture of fear and paranoia and secrecy also came the promise of, if you toe the line, we will protect you from everything. You'll always be above the law. And so then that fear and secrecy then became merged with a sense of privilege and self-entitlement along the way. And that's where we're at now. Richard Dolan had said one time, those who have power are not going to give it up willingly. And that goes without saying. Okay. And that's been the same all along. We are seeing that happen right now in our own country. And this is where we're running into this, the face of it being the intelligence community, button up against Congress and telling Congress to go drop dead, where Congress actually holds the purse strings. But now they're digging into it and they're finally realizing, okay, these guys have been finding other purse strings that are illegal. And where did that go to? And they actually admitted to it, that they're revealing these multiple and diverse shell corporations that are like 57 layers deep, to make you keep peeling back that onion to the point where you feel like you're getting nowhere, till you finally get to the root source, which takes forever. So it's like this shield of shell corporations all around this illegitimate government, okay, of privilege and self-entitlement and fear and secrecy. And they're not, and I'm not making excuses for it, but if you're on that side of the equation, and hopefully no one listening to the show is, but you're going to be of the mindset of looking at things like the Russian Revolution, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Chinese Revolution, and you're going to look at that and realize there was a whole lot of retribution taking place there. It wasn't until Eisenhower came along in World War II where he stopped the U.S. troops from gunning down the Nazi prisoners. He says, that's not who we are. We're not doing that. They're going to jail. They're going to be held on trial for their sins. We're not just going to shoot them dead, because then we're like them. And we're not going down that route. That was the first time you had someone stepping up and saying that. Prior to that, all these other revolutions that have taken place across the planet, it was just one movement replacing the other with massive retribution on the previous movement or the previous government. Everybody being hung, shot, skinned alive, tarred and feathered. That's what this culture of fear is looking at. They're thinking, oh, history is going to repeat itself. The other side of the equation, the side that would be defending the people legally, legitimately, and congressionally, is saying no. But trying to pierce that brick wall of brainwashing that says, if we let go of this and we start admitting all the garbage that we've been getting away with and inflicting the general public with lies, they are going to lynch us in the streets of America.
Mhm.
Well, I can't speak for everyone. Maybe that would happen somewhere, but the general attitude is no. And it's in more recent um, revolutions on the planet, be it the, the massive change that took place in South Africa um, under the leadership of Mandela, or certain political freedom fighters in the countries in South America, um, they have all said, look, this whole retribution thing is coming to an end. There has to be a forgiveness. Yeah, you legitimately want to kill them. They deserve a bullet to the head, sure. But you got to stop that vicious cycle so that they
Yeah.
can break their own damaged psychology and let go. And that's when things will change.
Absolutely right. Well said, Richard, on that. It's complicated, um, but it's got to be fixed. It just does. It's time. We are. I can't tell you how quickly this hour goes.
I
Right, as
know.
you know, we're coming up to maybe like 5, maybe 8 minutes. Richard, I just want to go from that to your books. If you could just briefly just tell us, like, within a couple of minutes, about your series. I think that the listeners, the viewers, would like to know a little more about your book series.
Okay. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Anyone who's interested in catching up with me or my wife, Linda, you can find our books on our official website, which is ufoteacher.com. All one word, ufoteacher.com. In fact, and you'll see the books there. There's even a book link there. If you want to purchase them, you can purchase them right from the website. If you would like to have them signed, great, but we'll do that too. And it's 3 books that represent the trilogy, and the trilogy is The More, the Mason, and the Alien, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. And then 2 more books to that series. One is written by Linda. It's called The Kings Are Coming, a multidimensional intergalactic odyssey, which serves as a great um, um, a journal type book to read in conjunction with the trilogy. Um, and it's all about her experiences with her mother and the journaled experiences that her mother wrote about in detail. And then the 5th book is called Legions of Light, Armies of Darkness, which is a prelude to the trilogy, which basically gets into how I got to the realization, how I got to that point on that journey of self-awareness and awakening to actually write the trilogy in the first place.
Hmm.
So Legions of Light, Armies of Darkness, it's a great prelude to the trilogy. And those are the 5 books you'll see on there. I'm working towards getting another one done now, now that the trilogy's finished. And I wanted to focus more on official first contact, which just so happened to be what we were talking about tonight. So, but you,
Fantastic. That's going to be very interesting. Wow. I'm so glad you're doing that. That's your next book. Are you like halfway through it now, or where are you in that?
not quite. I'm actually in the research phase of it, putting a lot
Okay.
of things together. Um, it'll be part of the same reality of the previous books, but the previous books set the foundation to get into official first contact from a different perspective than most people would think. Um, Especially with the idea you talk about someone being on that contact panel, right? Um, I think people definitely from just, and we can talk more about it on at another time, but people who are autistic and also people from the transgender community are the type who are going to bridge that gap of communication for official first contact, because they're the ones that represent the receiving end of tolerance or the lack of it, acceptance or the lack of it, and awareness or the lack of it.
Hmm.
So that, their view on life, that neurodivergent and also way of living, that would be a direct bridge to knowing how to talk to extraterrestrial race, which would be vastly different from anything we're used to on this planet.
Interesting point there. Wow, thank you, Richard. We're going to do another one soon because I have so many more questions, and I love interviewing you. Uh, you're just a find, and you really are in my book. And it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure, to know you and to interview you.
Thank you so much. It's been good to be here.
So this is Nick Curto for Disclosure Network New York, saying our motto for Disclosure Network New York is connecting the dots to seek truth. And we put that on our stationery, and that really is the bottom line. Everything that Richard and I talked about, it is connecting those dots to seek the truth. That's exactly where we are. So again, many thanks to you and to everybody out there. Much love to not only our planet, but to all the other planets and our brothers and sisters wherever they are. And we hope that they will say hello and we'll get to know them. We've got a lot of questions too. Take care. Much love to all, everywhere, everywhere. Oh, you're muted. You got to unmute. You got to unmute. Hercules, you got to unmute there. Yeah, there you
Sorry
go.
about that. Thank you both for a wonderful show. Thank you for connecting the dots the way you connected them and giving us all lots to think about. Until next time, this is us wishing everybody tuning in joyous journeys and amazing adventures. Good night and take care.
Much love to all. Much love.